Hello and welcome to the latest Global in the Granite State podcast, a program of the World Affairs Council of New Hampshire. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and engage with our organization, and I hope you find this work valuable. If you don't already know, my name is Tim Horgan, and I am the Executive Director of the World Affairs Council of New Hampshire, a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization dedicated to providing engaging programs that shape the global conversation, as well as your host for this program. I am honored to have such strong support from our internationally minded community and hope you will join in supporting this critical work. Donate or become a member today to ensure we can continue to bring these great programs to you by visiting wacnh.org. As a community-supported, membership-based organization, we rely on the generous support of people like you. While we aim to make our programs free and available to everyone, that does not mean they are free to produce. Your support makes all of this possible. A special thank you to McLean Middleton for their long-standing and generous support of our council. Your leadership in this space is an example for all. McLean Middleton is one of New England's premier full-service law firms with over 115 attorneys throughout offices in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. McLean Middleton's attorneys have been providing trusted legal services to businesses throughout the region for over 100 years. Learn more at mclean.com. Okay, now on with the show. Imagine yourself as a young 20-something embarking on an exchange program in a country you have never been to, where you don't know anyone, and you kind of think you speak the language. But 6 months later, a friend tells you that you sounded like a 5-year-old because of the mistakes you were making. While this can be a very scary-sounding experience, it is also the start of an amazing journey that took a shy young man and gave him the opportunity to prove he could tackle big challenges and succeed. I'm sure none of you would be surprised to learn that this is my own story of exchange, having done study abroad in Monterrey, Mexico, we'll just say many years ago. Without a doubt, the experiences I had during this time came to shape my life in big ways and small. There's no one incident or grand realization that I can point to that had the greatest impact, but the mosaic of this unique experience allowed me to explore who I wanted to be and how I viewed myself. At the same time, while this is my personal story, it is also the story of millions of others who have undertaken life-changing exchange experiences.
Like many people who work in our field in international exchanges, I got my start in it, my interest in engaging internationally from my own abroad experiences when I was in college and just post-college. And one of those was the year after I graduated, I was able to teach English for a year in China.
That is Mark Overmann, Executive Director of the Alliance for International Exchange, a Washington, D.C. based association that represents organizations and companies comprising the educational and cultural exchange community in the United States and serves as its only collective public policy voice.
I didn't have any background in the country or the language, but there was an opportunity to go and teach English at a technical high school in a small city in the northeast of China, a town called Yanji, that is actually in a Korean autonomous region, so a very bicultural and multilingual part of China. And I think two really important things happened during that year. One, my students got to learn from me, not just English, but also about American culture, about a culture in a world outside of their relatively small town. And these are students who really hadn't left their region very much, let alone traveled to the US or abroad. And they had so many misperceptions about the US, about Americans, misconceptions, just really a lack of knowledge. And I was able to be this American person for them that made what was a very impersonal, difficult concept and country to them very personal. And I didn't quite realize how important that was going to be and how much impact I was going to be able to have on them and open their minds to not just who are Americans, what is the US about, but just what is a world beyond the one that I've known, and how might I, through my studies, my study of English, kind of go beyond that. And I kind of saw myself transition throughout that year from thinking of, oh, I'm just an English teacher, to I'm actually, I think, a teacher of a broader world view. As little as I knew about that myself when I was 22, I think I did have an impact there. And then the second, of course, on the flip side, was the impact that my students, my fellow teachers, the people that I lived, worked with, met throughout my year there, the impact they had on me in teaching me what the Chinese people are all about, what China is all about. And of course, an amazing thing I learned was just how big and how diverse it is culturally, linguistically, culinarily, all of those different things. Specifically being in that place, a Korean autonomous region, I got this new sense of what it means in another country to kind of have this border and bicultural area, the impact that the Korean War had on China and Korea, and not just the country and the politics and the government, but literal families who were split in the wake of that, and what that has meant to this day. So for me, that just opened my eyes to what China is in this really profound way. And that has impacted me in so many ways going forward, not just in that it set me on this international career, gave me friends and colleagues that I still have to this day. But I think when there is something about China in the news, when you are reading something about competition with China or China as an enemy, I see it in a very different way because I know the country from my own experience. I know people who are from there, and I know that the things happening at a governmental level are very different than what are happening at a personal level, and people are not government.
These personal stories show the long-term power of exchanges to shape lives, and not always in the way we expect or realize. In the moment, I certainly did not realize all the ways in which I was changing, or how this would prepare me for a lasting career working directly with people from all over the world. It is only in retrospect that we can identify these important pieces. However, in a world that seemingly demands instant gratification, the long-term impact can be a difficult selling point for those who question the value of this work.
It's definitely a challenge of our field to be able to illustrate the long-term impacts because they do just draw out over time. And that young professional or mid-career professional who came on the International Visitor Leadership Program, for example, and then 15 years later, 20 years later, is a leader in their country at a high level, that exchange program definitely had an impact on their career and the way they view and interact with the US. That is for certain, and we know that. But it can be really hard to tell it to somebody, to prove it to somebody who might not understand instinctively the power of exchanges in the way that we do. So it's very much a challenge to, in this moment of instant gratification, of the need to prove yourself right here and right now, for us to show that, hey, this does matter right now, but also you got to be patient. You got to let this develop over time. So I think we as a field have done a good job over time of highlighting alumni stories and showcasing those world leaders who were previously an exchange participant. We need to do a better job of that, but also we need to figure out more and more ways to show that impact in the here and the now. I think one way we are doing that is highlighting economic impact. I think back in the day, at least when I started in the field, talking about economic impact, the way in which exchanges bring dollars and cents into the US, help businesses, help communities, help working families, that was something we shied away from a little bit because we didn't want to get away from the core reason we do exchanges and why exchanges are important and kind of sully that, so to speak, with economic dollars and cents. And I'm glad we have moved beyond that because one, the economic impact is real, it's important, and I think for those who don't understand exchanges as much or aren't in our world, it's much easier to understand. It is a here and now impact that they can grasp onto. Also, too, all of these things can be and are true at the same time. Just because there's an economic impact and we highlight that doesn't in any way mean that all of the other cultural, academic, interpersonal impacts aren't very real in there too. So I think this is a really good thing that the field has managed to move into to showcase impact, and we should continue to do that. But also, we can't rely too much on economics and say, well, that's just the one thing we'll get certain people hooked on. We still need to figure out ways that we are showing that political impact, foreign policy impact, national security impact in a more compelling in the here and now way. And I honestly don't know that I have a good answer as to how we can do that better.
One thing that we can do to show people the power of exchange is by having them host and meet with global leaders who visit our communities through programs like the International Visitor Leadership Program, which the World Affairs Council of New Hampshire hosts in the state. We can tell as many stories of amazing connections fostered by these programs or best practices shared, but the best way to see the power these programs have is to experience it firsthand. In addition,
one thing, though, that I think really needs to happen and that you are doing so well at a more local level is showcasing to Americans of all kinds, all professions, all places in your communities how international affairs, how national security issues, how exchanges impact them in very specific ways. If we can do that more, if we can get more Americans understanding, thinking about exchanges, realizing that they are being impacted by exchange participants, by international students, by international visitors on quite literally a daily basis, that I think will go a long way in allowing us to prove our case because it'll all bubble up from the ground to leaders in Congress, to leaders in an administration. I think we've been doing that in a good way. I mean, you and I have been doing that for years, trying to engage locally and push people in similar organizations like yours around the country to do more and more of this. So we're doing it. I think we just got to double down, triple down on it these days. It's really so important.
local engagement is so important to ensuring these programs are successful and have the intended effects on communities. So, what are some of the benefits that communities see that we need to recognize and support in order to drive home the point that exchanges matter and do impact our lives?
One thing we need to continue to do is to make sure that they understand fully when they are interacting with somebody from another country, that person is probably very likely on a US government exchange program and making that connection. One thing that comes to mind is the summer work and travel program, which many people are familiar with, of course, in our field. This is a Department of State exchange program that brings over college students on their summer breaks from around the world to live and work and travel in tourist locations around the world. So if you've ever been in Maine or on the Jersey Shore or in Florida or at a national park and you've run into an international college student, they are on the summer work and travel program. But most people don't know that. They'll just think, oh, I met somebody from X country and then move along. Can we really bring it home to them that, look, there is a specific reason they are here? There is a specific investment by the US government and NGOs around the country to bring them to that spot to meet you as an American. And there are so many benefits in that interaction and in their summers in the US. It's really trying to drive that home that I think will, one, increase support for what we're doing, but also, two, put in the minds of more Americans, whether it's the parents or a young student, that, hey, maybe this is something I could do and pursue myself.
Many in New Hampshire may recall the numerous times former Governor Chris Sununu has called for an increase in the number of seasonal worker visas and programs. And I'm sure we have all run into these people at the many wonderful state parks, beachside restaurants, and on the slopes of our ski mountains. Imagine how long life lines would be without these workers. In addition, just think of all the ways we can benefit from new ideas and different perspectives. As Ambassador Frank Lavin recently pointed out at one of our events, the United States is the best place to have an idea because you can pursue it and make it happen. While it is true that the U.S. is a great place to have an idea, it is not true that it is the only place where ideas come from. The more we can do to bring those ideas to the United States, the more they can be brought to life. Speaking of ideas, Mark has another insight into the benefits of exchange.
Secondarily, of course, we have to try to get more investment in opportunities for Americans to go abroad, to study abroad. One thing we're thinking a lot about is how do we as a community at the kind of alliance 30,000 foot level try to drive more interest and investment meaning time and energy, but also money by the private sector, by corporations, by businesses into our field. This is, of course, something lots of organizations are already doing, but we at the Alliance want to try to view it in some larger way that we could try to push that conversation and that investment, because I think therein lies a lot of opportunity for more investment of resources into Americans going abroad.
Again, the more we can show people how amazing and transformative exchange experiences are, the better we can build the support for these programs. However, we know not everyone is going to be a strong supporter of this work from the get-go. So, what can we do to encourage more people to take these opportunities?
I think my pitch to someone to get involved in exchanges, and let's say a younger person who might be on the fence about pursuing a study or internship or work abroad experience, would be one, this is good for you and your career. More and more jobs over the last, let's say, 5, 10, even 20 years require international experience, and that will only increase. And of course, that experience is potentially experienced with a particular country or region or language. Yes, that might be the case. But it is also, and I think this is the second thing I would say, it's about the skills, the more broadly applicable skills that you are learning when you are going abroad. The ability to navigate uncertainty and situations that put you completely outside your comfort zone. The ability to be flexible, to be adaptable, to be able to work with different cultures and countries, which is inevitable in any kind of business that you might be doing these days. You learn all of that on an abroad experience. Not to mention, it just expands your mind, your ability, your confidence in yourself that you can adapt to any situation, you can overcome any kind of challenge. This, I think, is just amazing personal growth that when you experience it, you know it, and I know it from our own experiences. It just brings you incredible satisfaction and an incredible sense of yourself in the world that you just didn't have before. So I would really try to drive home to those people that this is good for you, your growth, personal and professional, and is going to give you that many more opportunities to be successful in whatever your chosen career is. And I think the kind of cherry on top of that is I would say, and look, this is good for the world. This is good for US diplomacy, for our global influence, for creating friends and allies around the world, and for being able to create an interconnected society that is going to drive prosperity and peace for all of us. And that is something we all truly believe. And you go back to Senator Fulbright and his vision for exchanges, setting up the Fulbright Hayes Act, the Fulbright program, and everything that's come from that. It was fundamentally about preventing future war and the fundamental idea that if we all know each other, we are much less likely to fight each other. And that sense of peace and interconnectivity that drives everything we do for the last 75 years is so important. It's just as important today as it was then. And I think for any person, especially a young person growing in their life and career, to have this notion that they can be a part as they go through life of driving global peace and prosperity, that's a powerful thing that I hope, doesn't sound too hokey and would be something that people would really get on board with.
In addition, going abroad is just simply a lot of fun. Experiencing new cultures, seeing new places, trying new foods, and making new friends is plain fun. Yes, it can be scary. Yes, it can be expensive. Yes, it can be outside your comfort zone. But if you take that leap, you will be rewarded.
Travel is fun. Going to different countries is fun. You get to see unbelievable places, meet great people, do things you never thought you were capable of. It's just a lot of fun. And so adding that to our lives is just great.
It's also fun to meet people from around the world right here in your own state. Through programs like the International Visitor Leadership, you can engage with global leaders, quite literally without leaving your own home, if you want. Hosting informal dinners, volunteering with groups, or sharing best practices in your professional field can lead to amazing opportunities. One dinner host got invited to the wedding of the South African president through an exchange connection. A WACNH member was able to connect their daughter to a professor at the university she was going to study at before her exchange experience because of a previous IVLP connection. A local nonprofit worked collaboratively with an Indian NGO on bringing interns to work at their nonprofit coffee shop, all because of an exchange experience. In addition, the visitors gained so much from these programs, right along with their hosts.
A really valuable thing about US exchange program, inbound programming for international visitors and participants has been that exchanges are spread across our country, quite literally all states, red, blue, and otherwise, all communities. And that gives the visitors this very well-rounded, nuanced, and I think robust sense of what our country is, and that it is not a monolith. It is lots of different kinds of people and cultures and regional culinary delicacies and all the different things that make us who we are. I think the Global Ties Network is an incredible example of that is spread across nearly the entire country and is bringing that diversity of communities and cultures that are in our country to international visitors. So this is something that has always been important, we all believe in, and I think is even more important now these days. One, so that we are continuing to show international visitors that you are coming to see the entire America, the true America, on all the different facets and places and peoples of it.
I do want to take a moment here and recognize the ongoing work of the United States Department of State to continue the support of the International Visitor Leadership Program. In a time where budgets are tight, the prioritization of this critical exchange is a testament to the value the department, Congress, and the government sees in what this investment by the government provides. All of our communities benefit greatly from this, and none of this is possible without the laudable efforts of the department. By enabling this program, the department is opening the doors for citizen diplomats to tell the story of the United States and have a direct impact on the global conversation.
The concept of citizen diplomacy that, of course, the Global Ties Network does so well, has perfected, really created over the years, does have that profound impact. I think we all know that it's those personal interactions, let's say with an exchange visitor at a professional visit or a home hospitality visit, those are the things that stick with them. Those are the actions, those are the visits, those are the relationships that those people really remember and reflect on, and hopefully keep those relationships up over time. They are the things that really create and cement those visitors' view of the US in their minds that stay with them for years to come. So this idea that you as a citizen diplomat, really just welcoming people into your communities, your business, your home, just being who you are as a person and an American, you should know that that really does have an impact that people take back home with them. And if you've ever done that kind of travel yourself, you, I'm sure, felt the same thing when you met people abroad and you remember those moments. And that's ultimately what you think of about that country or that place or those people. And it ultimately makes you want to interact with them in a very positive way, and whatever that means. So the citizen diplomacy piece of it is about laying the groundwork, I think, for successful, peaceful interactions between our countries that ultimately make those leaders, whether they're business, government, politics, whatever they are, operate from a place of empathy and understanding, which is only going to lead to better outcomes in whatever the situation might be.
In the end, as with so many things in the world, it is never the viral moment that splashes onto the scene and makes a major change happen. There are a million moments and connections that slowly, steadily, and forever change the world. Each and every one of us can choose to play our part in that long conversation. But remember, if you choose to disengage, you choose to silence your own voice. In a world that is full of noise, chaos, and confusion, the loudest voices tend to rise above the rest, regardless of their message. But when communities come together, speak with one voice, and welcome others into their ranks, their combined voices can rise above the rest. If global engagement matters to you, if making the world a better place matters to you, if you believe that our lives are shaped by global events, take up the mantle of citizen diplomat and welcome the world. Thank you for taking a moment to listen to The Global in the Granite State, a program of the World Affairs Council of New Hampshire. Your support and engagement continues to validate the work we do and the conversations we host. We understand your time is limited and appreciate that you dedicated this time to better understanding the world. As always, Tim Horgan is the host, producer, director, researcher, fact-checker, audio engineer, and final decision maker on all of this. Our theme music is Admin by A.A. Alto, and our interlude music is funky, quirky, upbeat commercial music by Top Flow. Until next month.